So Tucker Carlson works on Fox News, and he's going to go on Alex Jones' program. Now, Alex Jones is right about a few things, so about the NSA spying, etc. He was right about that. We were right about that. The problem with Alex isn't what he starts out with. It's where he ends up. Okay? He'll take some things that are true, and then next thing you know, by the end of the conversation, the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds are killing everybody. Okay, all right. So now I've been on this program, and I'm like, Alex, you're right about that? No. You went way too far. You're totally wrong about that. But that's not the direction Tucker Carlson went in. Listen to what Alex Jones says here in the beginning, and then we'll show you Tucker Carlson's reaction.
I look at the Democratic Party and the demographics, and I've always been nonpartisan, but you can see they're going to get rid of the Republican Party right now. They are making it commit suicide. The Republicans are absolutely helping in this, and I don't want to have a total one-party system. We already almost have this with these committee chairmen, but when you look at La Raza and Mecha and their slogans, for those inside our group, everything, for those outside the group, nothing, and you look at how the Democrats were anti-civil rights, anti-Civil Rights Act, anti-voting rights, up until the Republicans beat them, and the Democrats went from being the Ku Klux Klan party of race with Senator Byrd and all them to literally going, okay, we're going to go race politic with the minorities, make them the majority. And so basically they went and started financing Mecha, La Raza, all of the Ford Foundation, and that's why you have this new race-based system where we all have been conditioned as Republicans or as libertarians or as white people to be, oh my gosh, we're loving, we're not racist, yes, please, do whatever, I'm sorry, I'm white, beat ourselves with whips on the head, and then meanwhile the Democrats have just recreated the Ku Klux Klan movement, but they've done it with minorities.
Okay, as usual, the very beginning, it was actually okay. He talked about the Southern strategy in the midst of the entire segment for the Republicans. He's right. They had a Southern strategy where they appealed to the racists in the South. He talked about how people like Senator Byrd, who was a Democrat, used to be in the Ku Klux Klan. That's true. And he talked about how the Democrats in the South used to be actually part of more of the racist movement. All of that was true in the beginning, right? But then what he did afterwards was totally the opposite of truth. See, the parties did switch on that, and the Republicans became more conservative with the Southern strategy. But that was after the Democrats changed their position and passed the Civil Rights Act. So now Lyndon Baines Johnson was a Democrat. He's the president that pushed so aggressively to get that passed. In fact, he called several senators and congressmen and said, I know you're going to lose your seat in the South by voting for this act, but you're going to do it anyway. And they did. So it was actually an incredible act of courage for the Democrats to switch over and to say, yes, African Americans should have the same civil rights as white people. So it wasn't because they decided in 1964 that a winning political strategy would be to try to form the black Ku Klux Klan. If that was the case, that would have been a winning strategy for 40 years, and it wasn't. I had Pat Buchanan on my show on MSNBC. He was part of the guys who formed the Southern strategy for Nixon when he was in the Nixon White House. And when I asked him about it, he said, yes, we had a nice 40-year run. That means they knew that once the Democrats went to the Civil Rights Act, they could flip over and get the racists and have that run. And they did. Nixon got elected, Nixon got reelected, and then, obviously Ronald Reagan, et cetera, right? So Alex Jones totally perverted the history of the country by saying, as if the Democrats decided they were going to go to La Raza back in the 60s and to the African Americans and form a majority coalition that didn't exist back then. Okay. And so this is outrageous. It's obviously untrue. And to say now that the current Democratic Party is the Ku Klux Klan of blacks is beyond the pale. So I'm sure that Tucker Carlson, since he works for a legitimate news organization, is going to correct him, right? Well, let's hear him out.
Yeah, there's a lot of truth in that. I wish there weren't. I mean, there's no question that the country is more race conscious than it was when I was a kid. I thought we were moving away. I hate segregation.
Clarence Thomas said that and got demonized last week.
But it's just factually true. We went from my kids, I have 4 children, and they learn all about segregation. In fact, it's one of the few things I learned about in school, and how horrible it was. And I agree with them completely. The idea that the federal government would take sides based on race is immoral and horrifying. And I always want to say them, but I never do because I don't want to upset them because they're too young. We do that now. The federal government takes sides and hands out spoils based on your skin color. It hasn't changed. In fact, it's become even more entrenched. What was once a tradition in the South and the law in southern states is now national.
No, wait a minute. Once again, your history is totally perverted. The federal government, quote unquote, took sides during the Civil Rights Act and said when the state governments were discriminating, actively discriminating against black people in their states and saying you cannot go to that diner, you cannot drink from that water fountain, the federal government said you're not allowed to do that, okay? And we will in fact bus certain people to certain different schools so there's no segregation, okay? We're not going to allow the state governments to pick sides. And in the midst of doing that, what they needed to do was affirmative action, the busing, and saying, since there are no, for example, black cops in this area, well, obviously you're doing that because of discrimination. What you need to do is open it up so that blacks have the same chance of getting a job as white people do. And what did the Southerners say at the time? Federal government's picking sides. They're favoring the blacks. In fact, they've been saying that ever since. So Tucker Carlson's history is also 100% perverted. But more importantly, he just said, Alex Jones just said the Democratic Party is the Ku Klux Klan for black people. And Tucker Carlson came out and said that's absolutely right. Now imagine if Tucker Carlson worked on MSNBC. And imagine that the reverse is true. And you know, you name somebody, Ed Schultz, Rachel Maddow went on a radio show and said, yeah, the Republican Party's for the Ku Klux Klan for white people. Oh, the tears. The tearful apologies. Hashtag Ed Schultz apology. Oh, I'm so sorry. And right after they did the crying and the apology, they would immediately be fired. Fox News, what's happened since? Nothing. Are they going to apologize? No. Is Tucker Carlson going to apologize? Of course not. Is there going to be any action from Fox News? Is there going to be any hashtag Tucker Carlson apologies? Not a tear shed. Two different sets of rules, man. The Republicans and Fox News can say anything they want, no matter how vitriolic, how ridiculous, and it's totally fine. And remember, by the way, Melissa Harris Perry didn't say anything about Mitt Romney's black grandchild, other than to say that she was gorgeous, right? It was the comedians that were on her show, but she did not reprimand them. Well, Tucker, you were on there with Alex Jones. How come you didn't reprimand him? Instead, you agreed with him 100%. The next time MSNBC apologizes, when these guys will do no such thing under any and all circumstances, understand how pathetic it is. I mean, you want to talk about false equivalency, right? And to come out to apologize to these guys, as Phil Griffin did, the head of the network, went and personally apologized to Ryan Priebus. Oh, we're so sorry for saying something mean about the Republican Party. Not the direction I would have gone.